These days, it's almost as difficult deciding what game to play as it is deciding what to watch on Netflix. The gaming industry has grown exponentially over the past decade, and with services like Steam and the PlayStation Store, video games, both mainstream and indie, have never been more accessible. But since there's so much to choose from, often a lot of fantastic games don't get the spotlight that they deserve. So today we're taking a look at some of these awesome titles with our list of the top 10 games that deserve your attention. And before we begin this list, just want to give a big shout out to Jolly Battle, who is sponsoring this video. Jolly Battle is a game that you can get on Steam that's an amazing adaptation of the classic Battleship style board game, taking the familiar concept and spinning it on its head with a brand new and accessible approach. It's an amusing take with fun cartoony graphics that make it family friendly, with players doing battle against a fleet of funny animated cakes, either up against an AI player, your pals on Steam, or rivals from across the globe in real time. It's made up of the simple classic rules of Battleship, but with a delicious twist and an entertaining soundtrack. Firepower blasts through caramel bombs, which zero in on the cakes that players take aim at. Players take turns attacking, so choose where to place your fighting cakes and try to chow down on the enemy fleet faster than they can devour yours. Plus, on top of all that, Jolly Battle entered the top 15 on Steam by Tag Strategy. That's pretty darn cool, so definitely check them out. For more details, be sure to take a look at the video description below. With that being said, let's jump into our video. And at number 10, The Forest. The Forest is a game available on Steam. It's a first-person open-world survival game. That setting is heavily inspired by the forested peninsula of the Canadian province British Columbia. After your plane crashes, you and your young son are the only survivors, and a cannibal is seen stealing him away. Aside from trying to get your son back, the game proposes other interesting dynamics: a day and night cycle, the ability to build shelters, hunt and trap animals, collect supplies, and defend yourself against the nocturnal cannibals. The player will also find themselves questioning whether the cannibalistic tribe is really their enemy, or if you, the player, is the bad guy in the situation. Built with a non-linear structure, there are no set missions or quests that you must complete in any specific order, allowing for more freedom of choice for the player. In at number 9, Papers, Please. You may have heard a lot about Papers, Please recently than some of the other games on our list. This is because a short film based on the game was released on YouTube and it got a ton of views. Aside from that, the game itself is pretty fantastic. A puzzle video game that explores a Pandora's box of ethical issues, Papers, Please puts you in the shoes of a border-crossing immigration officer in a fictional dystopian country which has been enduring political hostilities with its neighboring nations. You must make decisions on who to allow across the border. Every mistake you make results in a fine, which affects your in-game family. But on the flip side of that, you often have to deal with pleading immigrants, and decide whether or not to let people in despite a lack of proper paperwork, for example. It's a game that's often used as an example when exploring video games as an art form, with a reputation as a title that instills a whole lot of empathy in the player. Up next, number 8, No Man's Sky. Perhaps the only large mainstream title on this list, No Man's Sky got a whole lot of heat when it first came out. It wasn't anywhere close to the kind of game that players expected it to be, and many were disappointed. Ever since, developer Hello Games has been incredibly keen on making improvements, and recently they published the 4th major update for the game, known as No Man's Sky Next, in July of 2018. According to Hello Games, it's much more representative of the kind of game they initially wanted to release when the game first came out. So, what's changed? You can customize and create your avatar, with a full multiplayer mode that allows up to 4 players to work together. And you can see your avatar in third person now. You can explore planets and build bases together, which no longer have to be on specific spots on the planet, but anywhere your heart desires. You can assemble fleets of ships. The way that planets are procedurally generated has also changed, as well as how they're rendered, and it's a much more sophisticated and detailed system. There are more frequent updates, special events with community-driven goals, and special weekly content that players can purchase with in-game currency that they earn, all without any microtransactions. So yeah, a lot of big improvements. All in all, if you bought yourself a copy of No Man's Sky in the past, maybe give it another chance now. You might be surprised with how much you actually enjoy it. Moving on to number 7, FURI. FURI is an action-packed, fast-paced hack-and-slash shoot-'em-up game, consisting entirely of boss fights. You play as the Stranger in a sci-fi, colorful retro universe, which has an amazing soundtrack, might I add. The Stranger is a mysterious man who has spent his existence receiving endless torture within a highly advanced prison, made up of 10 islands floating in orbit above a planet's surface. You are freed by a character known as the Voice at the start of the game, and you must fight your way down to the planet's surface. The game features a few spikes in difficulty at times, but for the overall gameplay experience, it's definitely worth working your way through. And at number 6, Inside. From its immersive sound design to its tension-building environment, Inside is a game that will give you the creeps, and have you coming back for more. If you're a fan of the indie game Limbo, Inside will likely be up your alley. Made by the same developer, Play Dead, Inside, which is the follow-up to Limbo, also boasts a simplistic and haunting aesthetic, but varies enough to give players a similar yet completely new gameplay experience. A puzzle platformer, you play as a young boy navigating a dystopic world, solving environmental puzzles and generally avoiding death. Compared to Limbo, it has more human elements and a science fiction tone, but just like its predecessor, its ending has left many a player speculating the meaning behind its conclusion. Gotta love a good fan theory, people. Up next, number 5, The Witness. We've talked about The Witness a few times on our channel. It's the follow-up game by indie developer Jonathan Blow, the man behind Braid. The Witness is quite different from Braid though. It's entirely a puzzle game, but played in first person on an island that has many distinct and unique zones. Essentially, you need to solve all of the puzzles in the zones to lock the inside of the mountain at the island's center in order to complete the game. And the puzzles aren't the only aspect of the game that's compelling. Surroundings are incredibly immersive and worthy of your attention, making the overall gameplay experience a very memorable and engaging one. In at number 4, Valiant Hearts: The Great War. Valiant Hearts is an emotional roller coaster. Set during World War I, it's a puzzle adventure game about survival, sacrifice, and friendship during one of the world's most difficult and traumatic time periods. You play as 4 different characters over the course of the game's story: a Frenchman named Emile, his German son-in-law Karl, a Belgian nurse named Anna, and an American soldier who has joined the conflict on his own accord named Freddy. You also occasionally command a dog named Walt in order to help you solve various puzzles. And who doesn't love a dog? In addition to this, the game is filled with collectibles inspired by items from that time period. And if you take the time to read through all of the information that they give you, you'll probably learn a neat thing or two about the war and the people who risked their lives to fight in it. Valiant Hearts also has a beautiful and seamless art style. Slightly cartoony, yet simplistic enough that the characters' struggles really resonate with players. Plus, it's a pretty big tearjerker, so have tissues on hand. In our number 3 spot, Cuphead. Cuphead has one of the most captivating aesthetics. Inspired by the 1930s art styles the likes of Fleischer Brothers, along with a soundtrack that has some serious Duke Ellington and Cab Calloway vibes, Cuphead is a super unique and fun shoot-'em-up side-scroller. You play as Cupman, along with his brother Mugman, to fight a series of bosses in order to repay a debt to the devil. The game also has quite the reputation for being difficult, but those willing to give it a go will find the gameplay incredibly rewarding. The one disappointing thing about Cuphead though is that it's a Microsoft exclusive, meaning PS4 loyalists will be missing out. In at number 2, The Binding of Isaac. Some players have likened The Binding of Isaac to The Legend of Zelda, except in a much darker way. The Binding of Isaac is based on the biblical story of the same name. In it, Isaac's mother receives a message from God in which he demands that she sacrifice the life of her son to him as proof of her faith. You play as Isaac fleeing into a monster-filled basement, fighting to survive, with the basements feeling a little bit like the dungeons in Zelda. You face off against bosses and eventually Isaac's mother. The game was born out of a week-long game jam and allowed developer Edmund McMillan to explore his feelings about the negative and positive aspects of religion that he experienced when growing up. The game also features 13 possible endings, and that's pretty neat. And finally, in at number 1, Night in the Woods. Night in the Woods is a game that explores mental health. You play as an anthropomorphic cat named May who has dropped out of college and returned to her hometown of Possum Springs. As May navigates through the town, its darker truths become apparent. It's no longer a place filled with the eccentric happy characters as its art style suggests. Rather, there are more profound feelings and sentiments for you to discover, with a healthy dose of dark humor to boot. If you're a fan of narratives that operate more like a visual novel but allow for a lot of interactive exploration, Night in the Woods is probably a good fit for you. It's a game that will strongly resonate with anyone who's ever dealt with a crisis of self or existential feelings, and manages to not only make you laugh, but also relate to the sadness that May and her pals experience throughout the narrative. Alright, there we have it friends. Which of these games have you played before? Are there any on this list that you want to get your hands on? Tell us in those comments below. But you know what else is another game that deserves your attention? Our sponsor, Jolly Battle. It's a brand new release on Steam and it's available right now with a 40% off discount, dropping down from $2.99 to $1.31 for this month only. And a mobile version of the game is also currently in the works, so keep your eyes peeled for that friends. Make sure you scroll down to the video description below and click the link there for how you can get started playing Jolly Battle today. In the meantime though, thanks for watching everybody. I'll catch you all in the next video.